Hey everybody, welcome to Field of Dreams and ACTN. My name is Steve David and I'm your host. Joining me on the set today is my co-host Narada Wilson.
Hi Steve, always a pleasure to be here.
And also joining us on the set today is Terrence Babwa. Terrence, welcome to the set.
Thank you, Steve.
Terrence, tell my viewers who Terrence is.
Terrence is, well, at least this Terrence is, I'm a sports medicine doctor attached to, well, I work in private practice. Plus, I'm being affiliated with the National Trinidad and Tobago Football Association. When I joined was the Football Federation. I changed the name to the association back in 2001. So I've been with the Trinidad and Tobago football as team physician from various teams, starting with the youth teams, the women's teams. Then I was with that would have been over a period of probably 2 years. And then from 2003, I was the team physician for the senior men's national team until February 2017. And at present, I'm the team physician for the women's program of the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association.
Yeah, let me back up a little bit. Yeah, so we really get to know who Terrence is, and then we can get into more what you do for TFA and all that. So you're a South boy, right?
Yeah. Born in Princestown.
And you
still live in Princestown.
Yeah. And you went to school here in San Fernando?
But I did college in Naparima College, and then I went to university at Eric Williams, Mount Hope, where I did medicine. Yeah.
And you did the practice here in locally, or you went out?
Well, I did most practice here, but I've been to the UK doing some training in sports medicine for short periods, probably 3 months, 6 months periods. Did examinations and so on, and came back to Trinidad.
And then while you were getting into the medical field, was your thought, I need to get into sports medicine, or it just happened to fall into place?
Really and truly, while I was in medical school, I had no fixed specialty that I would have liked. But when I graduated, the first year I graduated, I met a teacher who taught me at Naparima. And I was always close to the football in Naparima, although not a player. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself even to be a recreational player. I'm not too good.
Right.
But he asked me, being a doctor, if I would just help out in the team at Naparima College. That was their football team. He said from time to time players get injured, they get head injuries and so on. There's nobody to take care of them. So I grabbed the opportunity, and it was while I was there I realized that athletes in Trinidad really receive very little care. They may just, and based with that, the people who may be around the team at that time may not be most qualified to advise. So here we were getting people who were getting muscle tears and head injuries, and they were being advised to put Iodex and rub it with salt water, and all these sorts of things, which wasn't really scientific. And then complain that they take a long time to get back into play. In addition to that, they will get people with asthma and so on who were receiving treatments that when we look at it, they were banned. Those sorts of medications were not allowed in sport. So it was during that period of time I realized that, we really need to lift the standard of medical care that teams receive. And that was what really motivated me to go into sports medicine. Just so that we could elevate the level of care that we give to our players. And more than that, to advise coaches, because coaches probably at that time might have been doing things that their coaches 20 or 30 years ago did, rather than what might have been scientifically correct.
So Iodex really not good? I thought Iodex was great.
Well, now it's sports balm, sports balm.
Sports balm, yeah.
Yeah.
Or if you get a wound, you take sand and you put it in it. All that was good. But no, they wash it out with soap and water and all that.
They wash it out, yeah. They wash it out, yeah.
Yeah, you know Narada Wilson at all? You ever heard of Narada? Big time agent?
We've met probably once or twice before.
Right.
But I know, the medical department in sport is very important, especially with the high risk, players at high stakes. Considering the time back then to now, do you think Trinidad has reached the point with your involvement over the years that we are closer to reaching where the international benchmark for medical care in our sports and football in specific should be?
Probably every day there are advances in science.
Right.
But I could say in the last probably 20 years that we have come a long way. We have come a long way. Maybe we still have a long journey to go.
Yeah.
Because when you compare things that might be available in the US and Germany and these places. But I think overall, as a sports medicine fraternity, we have come quite a long way, where people now, they have a lot of avenues now where they can get treatment, rehabilitation. Some of the techniques we do in Trinidad are comparable to anywhere in the world now. You know, stem cells, blood injections, all these sorts of things. You know, we offer it here now. But I can say sometimes the knowledge that's up there doesn't really filter down to the average player. Because I also do some research, and we were looking at simple things probably 3 or 4 years ago. A survey we did throughout the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we had a tournament in Trinidad, we would survey the English-speaking ones. And many, I could say probably 80% didn't know the correct regimen to apply ice after an injury.
Right.
And they didn't really understand the real function of probably some of the medical staff attached there. So maybe we have moved forward. There are things available, but sometimes filtering down to the athlete still isn't probably as good as we would have liked.
So, I mean, the education is important, even for the patient.
Yeah.
So how we get that down to, especially the younger players, because as a professional that I played, we kind of know how to rehab ourselves, even though we get instructions from doctors, but we help a lot at home. The younger players don't know that,
right?
And they hurt themselves more. Comment on that.
So what I would say, from what I've observed, I know many years I've been at the high level, I've been at the college level, but I have kids now who play sport, and they are in small academies where I know there's nothing available at games. So now I find myself covering these games because there are no facilities there. So I think that we need, if we are to succeed in disseminating this sort of information, we need to work at that level. Now, sometimes when you work at a higher level, you really can't understand why it doesn't filter down. But when you work at the grassroots level, you realize that maybe because we have so many people at that level that filters as we go along, that might be an appropriate way to start. Maybe in physical education at schools, which is really, I think, not very seriously. It's not very, primary schools take it very lightly, but that would be a good avenue to start basic things, basic nutrition, basic care of injury, just basic things without too much science into it. Good hydration, good nutrition for sport, how to prevent injuries. There are many people at a low level can't do much, can't balance on one foot. And they go through life like that because these are the deficiencies of this system. So maybe we could look at these smaller clubs. But again, a lot of things at these smaller clubs depend on volunteers. And we become very Americanized, Steve. We become very, very Americanized where everyone wants something for, there's nothing like that sense of volunteering being present.
Right.
So I think a better way might be just to probably incorporate small bits into the curriculum, probably in the physical education classes.
So you said like start from the school or...
Yeah, and we need to start young. Because many times when I was with the national team, you would go, the men's team or the ladies' team, you'd have people coming in there and they have no clue what to do with injuries. Like then sprain ankles, and so they will want to put heat. In the first few hours, you may want to put ice. That is the correct thing. Teaching now. You might want to get it pulled. Trinidad is a country of pullers and pushers.
Right.
Every injury you get, they want to pull, and everyone seems to be pushing.
I forgot about that pulling thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes even makes things worse.
Yeah.
So sometimes people with fractures come, and it's was in a good position, and after you pull it, they need surgery now.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, yeah. Because
Yeah,
you want a crack. Everybody want to hear a crack when they do something, you know.
That was a back in the day thing. You're gonna pull it. Every time you hurt, you're gonna pull it.
Yeah.
And you damage it a little bit more.
Right.
So, but how, well, we move out to that.
It's just, I mean, sadly to say, in some areas, it's still popular. More the rural outlying areas.
Mhm.
Yeah. Still.
So, well, before we get into talk a little bit more about specific injuries and stuff, what have you seen locally that we're doing wrong in anything when it comes to injuries?
I think in Trinidad, at least in Trinidad and probably in the Caribbean, a person becomes injured, and before they're evaluated or even treated, there's a gap. There's a gap. You know, someone might twist their ankle, and they may take probably a week or 2 weeks before they see someone.
Mm-hmm.
So many times I see recreational athletes, or even probably semi-pro, with that twisted ankle, and when they come by to me 2 weeks later, because it's not getting better with medications and so on, the ankle is very swollen. And when you see a very swollen ankle, or you see a very swollen joint, the time that they would take to come back would be very long. Would be much longer than had they had immediate treatment with compression and ice and so. So I think the awareness of the player, and many times the player depend on their club, and maybe the club mightn't have the best advice to give them. I think that is one thing I think we are doing wrong. We treat things too late. I mean, nowadays they say if you get a chest pain and it's a cardiac event, you can seek help within 6 hours. You know, you save a lot of heart muscle. Similarly, if you can seek help within 24 hours of an injury, and you know the basic first aid, ice, compression, and so on, that will go a long way in the time that a player would be out by that early application of immediate sort of care.
Right.
As he touched on that, I just wanted to jump into some 2 or 3 incidents more recently. We're seeing some of former national players who were with some of the professional clubs in Trinidad going almost sometimes a month without getting treatment. You know, they were knee injuries and stuff that we heard about, complaints. Do you think it's a case of only financial restriction, or the fact that these players just sometimes aren't aware of how serious the injury is and how much it could hamper their career in the future?
Well, I think many times players who are contracted to a club, we have to be realistic in Trinidad. The kind of financial backing of these clubs might be very minimal. Might just allow a payment of staff and so on. And the player, many times, he expects the club to take care of him. And with cash flow problems and so on, they may just depend on their trainer or their massage man to do something, and which might help in minor injuries, but more major things like ligaments and so on, I think is a financial issue to get them to places, to do scans. And what I've seen now more and more, the clubs are using the government and the public institutions where the waiting time is much longer than, you know, private, simply because of the cash flow problem. I think that would be a major contributor.
You mentioned massage, and it brings me back to when I did live and play in Trinidad, and you do get hurt, like a sprain or a strain or whatever. The first thing you think about is to rub it, and sometimes that's not. After I learned, sometimes that's not the best thing to do.
Right.
So, tell me how you feel about how we educate the people to understand that, you know, the first thing you do is to get medical treatment and let them direct you after that.
Right. So I'll touch on the point that you brought up, that in Trinidad everyone wants a massage, and that is one of the fallacies that maybe has gone from generation to generation. You know, this act your hands on Now, massage is a role in injury treatment, injury prevention. But for acute injuries, when something happens, no, probably within 3-4 days, massage is not the ideal thing.
Right.
Because when you have an injury, it stimulates what they call an inflammatory response. So you get the area might be warm and red, and you can't put pressure on it and so on. And that's what they call the acute inflammatory phase. And that is an important part in healing, but we need to control it. Mm-hmm. If it's over-inflamed, it takes longer to heal. So we aim for optimal kind of treatment, optimal amount of inflammation to allow healing to happen. And when healing is happening, now the body is trying to lay down repair blocks to overcome the defects in the muscle or the defects in the ligament or so. And when you go to rub, what you really do is try to destroy it. So the building blocks you're trying to put down are being removed by the massage. Now, there's a time probably around 8 days, 7 days, 10 days. I mean, it depends on the injury, where you'll get scar tissue starting to form. And that's the ideal time where you go for massage to ensure that it doesn't form as a clump.
Right.
But is more spread out according to the muscle or the ligament or so, to allow it to take more stress. If you have a muscle tear that just heals with a lump of scar tissue, when you go back out, the muscle is tight and you'll tend to burst it again, or re-sprain your ankle, or damage your ligaments again. So massage is important, but the timing of massage is good. And that's why I think that we should go back to basics to know when you get an injury. We want to apply ice, we want to compress it. If it's an injured ankle or foot, we might want to elevate it, so on. And if you do basic things and it's still not improving, then maybe it might be a fracture. Maybe it might be something worse than you thought. But once you do that basic correcting, correct mechanism there at injury, I think that it'll go a long way to coming back quicker after an injury.
I remember, my doctor, as a professional, the doctor said to me, every time you rub it, just like you said earlier, he says like a wound trying to heal, and it has a scab, and you keep taking it off, taking it off.
But when
I kind of run away from massages. I don't even massage when I get injured because it's the ice or the heat or whatever, but I don't rub it anymore.
But when the scab becomes well incorporated into the tissue, it's not a bad time to rub it because it can't be removed anymore. It's just to align it. So there's a role for it, but I think the timing of it is important.
Right. So the massages out there, you can still do it, but not right away.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I want to get into some specific injuries with you that we need to address. Let's say, especially in soccer. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll get into more specific type of injuries. Viewers, we'll be right back after the short break.
We are inspired. We are practiced. We learn. We have challenges. We are supported. We persevere. And we shine. This is our commitment to you.
You're now changing your question.
What I would say, Steve, is this.
My first question was, and roll back that tape.
I made my debut for Crystal Palace against Tottenham Hotspur.
My responsibility was to get the ball and make things happen offensively.
All
the time we've played together, I've always been the decoy.
Welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David, and I'm your host. Okay, viewers, welcome back. Terrence, before the break, like I was saying, I want to get into some more specifics or my viewing audience, especially the young kids or the younger adults that's getting into the game now so they understand specifically what they have to do for certain things like a sprain. So let's say like a sprained ankle. What would be initial method of treatment for that?
Right. We go to the tried and true methods that well scientifically documented. It's very important for the first 3-4 days after an injury that we apply cold. We apply ice.
Mm-hmm.
So applying ice is important, but we apply the ice in a cloth or plastic. Sure. We avoid putting ice directly on the skin.
Right.
Because it can cause ice burns.
Mm-hmm.
So we apply ice. We could apply frozen peas. You know, everybody have pigeon peas in the fridge. You know how it used to be.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Peas, ice. There are many ice packs. Gel packs. Sure. Those heat and cooling gels, but they use the cooling part of it, and they apply that directly to the affected area. You'd also want to compress it. So you'd want to use something stretchy, like a crepe bandage or a piece of cotton cloth, and you apply it to the area. Not too tight, but just enough to prevent it from being overly swollen. Because as we said, if too much inflammation is good, but too much inflammation could delay healing. So apply ice, you could compress it with a cloth. And I mean, nowadays everybody know the figure of 8 bandage where you just attach it and you go around like a 8 around the ankle. Ice. And for the first probably 24 hours, you may want to elevate it. By elevating it above the level of the heart, it encourages the excess fluid to come back to the circulation.
Right.
Right.
Would you recommend a timing of doing that? Is it for a long period of time?
I would say probably about 3 days, right. 4 days. But we use pain as a guide.
Okay.
We use pain. As the pain improves, we tend to move on to the other phases.
And do you leave the ice on for any length of time? Or?
The ice, we apply the ice when it's cold for 15 minutes to 20 minutes every 1 hour. Okay. But with students and so, as you mentioned, they may not be able to do it every hour, so they might do every 2 hours. Right. But the area of the purpose of the ice, one, it does decrease pain. It does decrease the width of the blood vessels, make it smaller so you don't get the excess blood flow to the area. And it helps the tissues that may be vulnerable because of the swelling that may have a higher chance of dying to rejuvenate.
Something like a sprained ankle too as well. There's not a specific spot. You follow me?
Yeah.
So be sure you're feeling it all around. So my best method for me that I've used is there's a little guard that you put on your toes because when you stick that in an ice bucket, it burns your toe.
Yeah.
Right. So I put a little guard on there and stick the whole thing in there so I'm getting everything.
Right.
Is that like a better method of icing?
Well, it's an alternative to it. And for the feet, yes, yeah, I believe it could add some advantage in that it's like you just attack everything.
Everything one time, right?
So in case you miss really where the injury is, then you get it, yeah. So I guess, yeah.
Because sometimes the pain radiates, right?
Yeah.
You feel it here, but the problem is really
right.
here.
Yeah, it's really there. So, yeah, I guess, yeah, that would be alternately. But I mean, an alternative could be they put ice packs inside, outside, depend on yeah. And why you talk about ice packs? So peas or so, you could just put it back in the freezer and it freezes again, in terms of yeah.
And how you feel about hot and cold treatment?
Right, so there's a school of thought that thinks that maybe after the acute inflammation, that's when the pain starts to go down, the swelling starts to go down, that we'd be able to probably, contrast. That's probably 4 or 5 days after the injury. I mean, not much science behind it in terms of evidence to say that it works or it doesn't work, but it's a method of treatment. But you don't want to use too much heat too early because it opens up the blood vessels and it causes more blood flow and increases the swelling. And we want to control the swelling in the first few days. So if you do go ice and cold, it'll go probably 4 or 5 days after the initial injury.
But what does ice really do? Does that slow the blood flow or increase blood flow to that area?
Right. But before I answer that, I'll just say it's a natural phenomenon after injury to get an opening up of the blood vessels, right? Because of some of the chemicals released from the injured tissue. The ice causes the blood vessels to decrease in width and diameter.
Right.
So we limit the amount of blood flow to the area, which is a natural tendency to have an increased blood flow there. And that's why we get the swelling. So the ice causes a decrease in the width of the blood vessels, and that goes to the injured area, which would optimize the amount of swelling we will get there to allow healing to start to take place.
So you want to minimize blood flow in that area to
yeah, because there's a natural tendency anyway for increased blood flow. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, compression is important.
Yeah.
So this is another thing that we did as a professional. You strap your ankle, not too tight, but tight enough to hold it, and try to put pressure on it. And this, again, our thought process was to kind of try to get the swelling out, because once you move the muscle, it kind of gets the swelling out. Is that factual, or were we hurting ourselves more than anything else?
Right. So I mean, by the swelling, anything that would reduce the swelling would be helpful. So it's not a matter that it will be harmful, or the compression would reduce the swelling, and but putting too much weight on an injured joint or too much pressure on an injured joint too early may also be counterproductive.
Depending on how bad it is.
Yeah.
Well, we always had a thing saying, if you don't heal in a week, then it's you need a doctor.
Right. Yeah, certain injuries. Yeah, many injuries heal within a week.
Right.
But muscle tears and so would take longer. Ligament tears would take longer. But a week, maybe 10 days, 7 to 10 days, you may need to review it.
What body part is the worst or the hardest? Not the worst, but the hardest to heal?
The spine, the brain, the spine and the brain. Because bones break.
Right.
And even though they may not heal perfectly, they heal. But sometimes you get head injuries or nerve injuries, and you just become totally out of sport. You leave sport, you retire from sport. Because the nervous system, the tissues in the nervous system, they play a very important function, but they're very easily damaged, and they take very, very long to heal. So you may get a muscle tear that heals within 4 weeks, but then you might get a nerve that's torn, and after years you're still affected by it, despite everything.
And they do have injuries that linger on. It's like somebody says, it's better you broke it than strain it, because ligaments and tendons and stuff like that.
The problem with that is that players always have a game to play. They may have it, and many times people come to me with some injury, and they have a final to play 5 days later.
Mm-hmm.
And I know to myself that chances are they wouldn't be they wouldn't be close to being fully healed. But these players are going to play anyway. So my role here is just to kind of reduce their pain a little bit, because regardless of what you tell them, an athlete who trained 4 years to go to a World Cup final, who is injured, he's going to try his best to play. Because in 4 years, he might never play another final. He might never even qualify. I mean, look at these big teams that have him qualified for the World Cup. So they will try their best to play. My role there at that time is to just make them more comfortable, whatever techniques we use, and they will play.
So let's talk about some of those techniques. For reducing pain, you're talking about like anti-inflammatory or injections or what?
So we look at conventional, where there's a lot of evidence. and we look at upcoming therapies in injuries. So we look at basic anti-inflammatories, and footballers use quite a lot of anti-inflammatories. When we look at the medication sheets from 2006, 2010 World Cups, the average player would have used probably 3 anti-inflammatories before a game, you know, or in the last 3 days leading up to games. I mean, when I even look at our team in 2006 when we went to the World Cup, the first game against Sweden, out of 23 players, 18 had some kind of anti-inflammatories within the last 24 hours. So, yes, there's a role for anti-inflammatories. But there are other emergent treatments now. Some haven't been really studied at very in-depth, but there's something we use called mesotherapy. Mesotherapy is an injection technique developed in France, and it involves putting small, fine injections into the middle layer of the skin. Certain drugs you put for certain injuries, and that stimulates the skin itself to release healing factors. Now, there's not much science behind it, but what that does, an inflammatory phase that would last 8 to 10 days, that will reduce it to about 3 days. So some injuries you would see coming back, like a hamstring, like 4 weeks. Sometimes you get them back in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. And that extra week for a player could make the difference between 2 or 3 final games. Because if they play games every 2 or 3 days, you know. So where somebody would say, hey, you only get 1 week extra, why do it? For a professional player or an elite player, that makes a difference. It makes a difference between competing or not competing. So there's mesotherapy. So I went to France to do that, that technique. And while I was there, it wasn't popular. That would have been in 2004. But I was seeing in the clinic I was that a lot of players from the Premiership were leaving England and traveling to France, get the injections Monday, Tuesday, and play the following week. Whereas they weren't getting it in England. So I did that, and I do a lot of mesotherapy for injuries. But there's amazing treatment now, and it's available worldwide, still experimental, which is called platelet-rich plasma. This is something now where we take a patient's blood. It's spun, and the platelets are parts of the blood that allow clotting. And it's found now that platelets have a lot of growth factors in it and healing factors in it. So we do that, we spin it, and by spinning it, the platelet concentration becomes very high in a small amount of fluid. We extract that, and we can use the ultrasound now and locate where the injuries are and inject it directly into it. And that is making a lot of difference now in time to return to play. And more I'm using it for like arthritis. Because many people don't want surgeries and so on when they are 60, 70. And we use it and with very good results.
Is it a temporary thing, or is it like it promotes healing?
The exact mechanism is not known, but the pain and inflammation and so is much less.
Right.
So maybe it hasn't been used long enough to see whether or not there's actual regeneration. Correct. But at the end of the day, when you're 70 or 80, or I mean, quality of life isn't very important, you know. Right. Not so much. Many people don't want surgery at 70, 80, and if they can find something. So in my experience, I've been using it a lot for the last 3 years, and I'm seeing some good results. I can't say it's permanent, but improvements. Yeah. Then there's stem cells. Not many people do stem cells. It's now becoming in vogue. There are a lot of ethical issues whether it should be done or not. So I don't think we have approval yet in Trinidad to do that. But I know some people would be fiddling around in that. So yeah, but yeah.
Something I wanted to touch on, as he touched on the stem cells and some of the other treatment mechanisms. There's also the WADA, which is the doping situation. And with some players getting a lot of information, have you seen that our players understand, or our medical staff do take, precautionary measures in terms of issuing certain drugs or treatments that may fall on the list as banned substances? Because in Trinidad, we've never really had any athlete that has, not any big case that has involved any athletes being banned for some sort of drug that was on the WADA list, and is that something that you take a lot of precaution in when dealing?
Right. So I can speak from the point of view of football.
Correct.
But other sports they have been banned.
Yeah.
Football. Well, when I was there, and I was lucky to be part of football when sports medicine was being evolved.
Correct.
And as I mentioned earlier, when we were at college, we were seeing players receiving medications they should not have because they're not allowed in sport.
Mm-hmm.
So what we would do, players who are injured, players who are injured or ill, we have a list of, we have a bag of medication that has substances that are allowed in sport.
Right.
So if I have things that are not allowed in sport, that would be because my role with the team is not only for the players, it involves the people, staff, and staff get sick and staff have problems. So I'd have that, but separate.
Right.
And we just use medications that would be allowed in sport. There are some of these cough medicines and so on that contain stimulants and so on. So, because, I mean, certain medications might have 4 medications in them, and one may not be allowed at a certain level in sport. And so we do our best to educate players. I mean, players, when I was there, would have my cell number, now with WhatsApp, emails. So if they take our medication, they could just send me to know. The problem we had there is that sometimes they take our medication as herbal.
Good point.
And sometimes by taking a herbal medication, we are not trained in herbs to know whether or not a substance that may be called substance X what is it? We don't know the drug.
Right.
And WADA doesn't give a list of herbs.
So
that would be one little problem. Another problem that we may have had is that you're passing through the airports, international airports, connecting flights to come to play international game. You feel a sore throat or you feel some cold coming on, and you might go to the pharmacy in the airport and just purchase something. Nobody knows, So these are the things that we had, and the communication gap at that time, because of the hour they may be traveling, we may not be able to get a response. But that happened very, very irregularly.
Yes.
But while I was there, I always advised them to take things and let us know, so we would not, we wouldn't have that kind of problem.
Yeah.
But again, in sport, in football, team sports, the most abused drug internationally is social drugs, marijuana. That most people test positive in team sports, unlike individual sports where anabolic steroids are number one here. So yes, we had player education, but I think there's a lot more to be done at the lower level.
Okay, do you see players like, again, I go back to myself, when I played ball, they would say to me, Steve, you're too tough for your own good because I play through pain. And I want you to think about that because I need to take a break. But when we come back, I will pick up that question with you on that type of player, and are they hurting themselves more than helping themselves? Viewers, we'll be right back after the short break.
We are inspired. We are practiced. We learn. We have challenges. We are supported. We persevere. And we shine. This is our commitment to you.
You're now changing your question.
What I would say, Steve, is this.
But my first question was, and roll back that tape.
I made my debut for Crystal Palace against Tottenham Hotspur.
My responsibility was to get the ball and make things happen offensively.
All the time we played together, I've always been the decoy.
Welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. My name is Steve David, and I'm your host. Okay, welcome back, viewers. Yeah, Dr. Bagbo. Like I said, but the doctor used to tell me, Steve, you're too tough for your own good, because painkillers for me is last resort. And I would try to play, as long as I can survive it, play through the pain, I will try to. How you feel about that with players?
There's not how I feel about it. Well, before I got into sports, I thought it was madness. But then coming into sports and dealing with athletes, I've realized that it's a way of life. The great Leo Ben-Hacker said to me one day, there's no player he knows who doesn't play through some pain or some niggle.
Right.
They always have something. It's about managing it. And so we meet athletes who really are too tough for their own good. But then we have to look at the psyche of our athlete. And part of what makes them an athlete is a mindset. So athletes use a lot of coping mechanisms. So they may have an injured arm, and they use some dissociative techniques where they just ignore that pain totally.
Right.
Or as far as they are concerned, the arm, they look at the arm as being separate from the rest of the body. So they play through pain. And they play through pain for many reasons. And I have seen no problem if a player wants to play through pain for a limited period of time, a game, a part of a game. But when you want to play through pain every day, and many times you pop a pill before you play, there are many, many problems associated with that. And sometimes in a long season, take a week or two, get some treatment, get some rehabilitation, and go back. Because there are a lot of detrimental effects of popping these pills too often, taking repeated steroid injections and so on. But again, it's the psyche of the athlete. And I mean, I should just give you a study we did where 46% of Caribbean footballers who took part in the tournaments and so, they would have taken a painkiller in the last 3 days prior to competing. And then males, they tend to use much more painkillers than females, but females take more risk. So athletes, many of them have an adolescent mentality where they do risk taking. They may be aware of possibility of worsening an injury, but they are risk takers. They would do things risky, and they take the consequences. So they have a muscle injury and they might tear, but they take the chance. And if it tears, it tears. You know, for them, that's a normal part of the job.
And that's why I resent taking the medication, especially the anti-inflammatory, because there's side effects to everything you put in your body.
Definitely.
And if I could play through it, why am I taking something?
Right.
It's better, you know, I don't play.
So we had three cases where players after games, I mean, anti-inflammatories, you're doing a prescription for it. You could buy it over the counter. We had 3 players on the national team that had bleeding from the stomach after a game.
That is,
yeah, 2 men and 1 woman.
Use of.
Yeah, and that's excessive use.
You know, I remember every season you lose, especially your big toe, you lose a nail or 2 sometimes,
yeah,
because of the jam and the pressures and the boots and everything else. But I remember we were playing in Mexico and my big toe was so inflamed. And there's pressure under it, blood. You could see it's all black. So this doctor in Mexico, he was chipping to release the pain. But he asked me if I wanted him to shoot it first before he can chip into the nail to release the blood. I said, no, I will chip because I want to feel when you're going too much.
Right.
And he said, well, you're different to the rest of the guys because every one of them would not let him chip into it. They would take an injection.
Yeah.
To release the pressure. And as soon as he gets down far enough and that blood come out, most of the pain gone.
No pain, yeah.
So that was
Yeah.
That was an experience.
Yeah. So I mean, many athletes are afraid of needles too. Like many people, the Caribbean, needles are some phobia. So they'd rather take the pain than to take a needle.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when we say in Trinidad when flour, water more than flour, you know that statement there that they would take a needle. But many things I do in my practice, we use needles. I mean, because they have been through the run of the mill, they have been through anti-inflammatories. So what we try to do is identify the tissue that is injured and try to work directly there.
Okay, as a doctor, you sit in the stand, or team doctor, and you watch one of your players go down, and you watch one of your trainers or whatever run out, and absolutely doing the wrong thing. It could hurt the person can get hurt more, especially if it's spinal or something. What do you do?
Well, I've never covered a game and not go out on the field.
Okay.
If I sit in the stands to cover a game, I'm not doing my job.
Right.
My job is there and then, because there are many things that could happen: head injury, cardiac arrest, and I need to be there. What I've done over the years, working with the men's team, with the physios, we do training for major things. If this head injury happens, what we would do? If cardiac arrest happens, what we would do? And always tend to be prepared for those major problems. 99.9% of the times when you go out on the field is some minor.
Right.
Probably even more than half the time is just strategic.
Right.
You know, you may be under some pressure and you just want to get arrested.
Right.
And the other times it's just not significant. But 3 or 4 times we have had things where we're really serious, really, really serious. And that's why I believe that you need a trained medical people there at the sideline. So I wouldn't sit on the bench or sit in the stands while a game is going on. I need to be there. Because at the end of the day, we have to protect the player. We have to let the staff know whether or not we need to change. Sometimes someone has a muscle tear, a fracture or something. But we need to let them know early. So I think that you really need to be there rather than away from the. Yeah. But in a team, and I think part of the medical team, with any football team, we need to have regular training, regular communication between the members who will be going out there. What to happen, what emergency plan we have, what's the latest guideline in CPR. That changes every 3-4 years, so you need to be updated. How you get players off the field with a neck injury or a head injury. I mean, my second game with any national team in Trinidad, Marvin Lee broke his neck.
I was now going to ask.
Yeah, Marvin Lee broke his neck. And I mean, there's so much misconceptions about what went on there by people who weren't there. You know, and we still hear it from time to time. And so you need to be there. You really need to be there.
Right.
I was going to ask a question, as you brought up his name. Some of the, more serious injuries that we experience in Trinidad and Tobago. And I wonder if you're saying that is like your second experience, it probably would have been something a bit traumatic and probably would have helped you, accelerate the process of us being more aware of what our medical deficiencies are at our medical staff. If you would have liked to shed light on 2 or 3 incidents that you think may have been major over the time that you've been with the men's national team.
Right. So, I mean, we had about 4 major things incidents that I believe that would have required a lot of care and expertise at that time, compared to probably hundreds that don't. My second game with the under-20 team, Marvin Lee, in the 3rd minute of that game, he hit his head into Donovan's chest, and he fell at the ground that is now Marvin Lee Stadium. I can't remember what was the name at that time. Just as he fell, that's how he was. He could not have moved after that. He was paralyzed from there. Getting somebody with a head injury or a neck injury off the field takes a lot of expertise. I mean, I know it is. People get hit in the head in Sobo and diarrhea, and many times they just lift them and bring them off. But you need to keep the head in line. You need to get them on different machinery. You need to get them on proper spine boards and so on. And if you don't have the proper equipment, you need to hold the head in a certain position until we could get a collar one and so on. So that is one, but he wasn't unconscious, he was conscious. So that would have been in 2001, right?
Yeah.
2007, and a Gold Cup in the US, Anthony Noriega.
Correct.
He had a collision against the US and he was unconscious. He had a little bleed in the head. So that was another one. There was a women's game where, and this would have been sometime in 2003, where during a game, a girl had severe pain in the calf. Severe pain. She just developed that. And that turned out to be a compartment syndrome where the pressure built up very, very seriously. And we had to get her off an emergency surgery. Otherwise, she might have lost the function of the foot. So that was another emergency. And then recently in 2016, we had the injury where Jan, the goalkeeper of Trinidad, got hit and was unconscious on the field of play. So those were the ones that really required a lot of expertise there. Thankfully, we haven't had cardiac issues there. But I mean, that in itself would be a nightmare.
Yeah.
So with all we've been saying, Steve, I think that we need to, we talk a lot about treatment, but I think we need to talk a little bit about prevention. Because ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
So tell me, some of the preventative measures we can take.
Right. So in football, FIFA over the last 10, 15 years, they developed a preventative program known as the FIFA 11, where we incorporate exercises that is specific, but it's like, so it's not like gym exercises. It's exercises you do on the field where you develop balance, where you develop core strength, where you develop flexibility. And these are just take 11 minutes to do.
Right.
And if done 3 times a week, could reduce the amount of injuries by about 35 to 50%.
Okay.
And these are the type of injuries that we need, that the bread and butter type of injuries, the groin strains, the hamstring strains, the ankle sprains, things like that. And I think that we need, especially the younger age group, to let that be part of the preventative program. It's not something I think you could implement at a national team that comes in for 2 days to play a game and leave. We need to implement that at a bigger level. Last year we tried to start it. We launched it, but the follow-up hasn't been great. Another preventative aspect is preventative refereeing. So many times, like when you look at analysis of data, elbow to head, you jump for a ball in your elbow, that was causing a lot of concussions, and that is now banned. Elbow is a red, clear elbow is a red card now.
Right.
Tackling from behind. So referees need to enforce the laws. Many times there are laws they're not enforced. So by enforcing, reducing foul play, that is also reduce injuries. Now, in an attempt to reduce the chance of cardiac arrest happening, athletes, and we do a lot now in the federation, we do screening to see if they may have some condition that might cause them to collapse. And I think over the last 4 years, that's been a big part of the cornerstone. All national teams, before going into major tournaments, they have this screening. The problem with screening, too, is that it doesn't filter down to the average man. So I think many players who play in the secondary school football league never had a checkup. And I mean, we have to face the facts. It hasn't been done. So anything can happen at any time. And we keep saying God is a trini, but I just saying sometimes that sense of luck might run out. So prevention now is becoming a much more important part in preventing injury, preventing illness, things like that.
And flexibility is strength. I always say that. And so it's good to do a lot of stretches. Make sure your joints loose.
Right. With balancing.
Balance.
Right. Sometimes you jump for a ball and you don't see where you're landing. Right. So sometimes you land off balance, you twist your ankle, you twist your knee, things like that.
Right.
Even a simple thing as the surface of a playing field. Many times you play things on the hours before goats and cows are there being grazed and big holes in the ground, and so you know we speak about it. Yeah.
So they put like a ball and you put a piece of board on it and you
balance.
put it, and you know all that is good technique.
Yeah. Because standing on one foot with the eyes closed is good.
Right.
You know, all to get a sense of balance going there.
So when you come down. All right, we don't have much time, but in important, is there anything you might want to say to our viewers or the younger people out there who should know, things they should know or things they should do before they go play or doing the game or whatever?
Well, I think that anybody involved in sport should do some sort of warm-up and cool-down. Warm-up before and cool-down after training sessions.
Right.
They should pay special attention to things like balancing, flexibility, core strength, if you had to prevent injuries. But many times, despite all that, people still get injured. And when you get injured, you want to apply basic first aid as soon as possible after. And I think that I would like probably all teams, grassroots or not, to have a compression bandage, at least in a kit,
Right.
an ice pack, a tape, just basic things. They don't need to get a $500 bag. They can just get everything there for $100. I mean, I don't think it's beyond that grassroots team. So that something happens, you could apply immediate care to them.
Okay.
And then if they're not settled within that few days, as you mentioned, then you may seek help, public, private, whatever, because it may be something a little more than we think. So I think that,
I would just like to add quickly that he spoke of the FIFA 11 health program, and while I worked at FIFA in 2012 to 15, and I went to these conventions, his name was there. So we're dealing with somebody who has the experience at the highest level in football and should be somebody spearheading a program for specifically Trinidad to get our medical levels up in sport.
Yeah.
Dr. Barber, I want to thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm very appreciative.
We really appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And as a nation, we're lucky to have you as our doctor for the team.
Right. Thank you so
And
much.
keep up the good works. Nirada, thank you as well for being
Always
here.
a pleasure to be
I
here.
appreciate you too. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. ACTN, thank you for giving us the opportunity. We do have a Facebook page. You can check us out, and we do have an email address, feedersdreampt@gmail.com. You can drop us a line. My name is Steve David. The show is ended. Go in peace. I'll see you next Monday night. Good night.